Friends and lovers, welcome to Past Cure, a game that wants to be Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill, with a dash of Uncharted and the evil within, and isn't very good at doing any of it. The best thing I could say about this game, which has the unmitigated goal to charge $30 on PC and console, is that it's functional. It basically works. It doesn't work so well that you can't fall off the side of the map unto your death like a really bad Steam Direct asset flip, but outside of that, it has a basic function. The awful-looking Ethan Mars lookalike that you can control him. The gunplay isn't particularly enthralling and is as basic gets, but it's functional. And that really is all you can say about it in terms of praise. It does the bare minimum required to be a video game. And if this was, well over 10 years ago, pushing 15, I'd be able to say, yes, it's alright, it's decent. The letterboxing can fuck off, but, it does what it needs to do, but not a lot else. And in this day and age, it's untenable. What you're looking at right here is quite literally the best part of the game that I've played so far. Yes, it's dingy and repetitive and has no atmosphere, which is a problem with this game overall, a complete lack of atmosphere. But this genuinely is the best part, and the most atmospheric part, even though you're just going through a series of repetitive rooms, shooting at some little porcelain bloke over and over again. It only goes downhill from here, and it gets rapidly downhill. You eventually learn two superpowers through a laborious fucking tutorial that never shuts up. You can slow down time, and you can astrally project. But before we talk about that, and the woeful stealth, why not have a little look at the voice acting? You're gonna love this. Here's the epic voice acting.
What the hell? Why can't I breathe? What's going on? Fuck. How do I stop this? It must be the game. I have to put the pawn back. It stopped. When the pawn is in danger, so am I.
Well, I don't know about any of you fuckers, but I think that mundane, bland, bored-sounding whispering really sold the frantic panic that comes with almost choking to death. But I might just be a little bit sarcastic there. Just a touch. Just a little touch bit sarcastic. But let's talk about the enthralling stealth action that makes up the majority of Past Cure's gameplay, at least as far as I've seen. So far, I've reached a point where stealth becomes mandatory. It's just, you're given an arbitrary reason not to be seen. But here you can get away with being seen and it becomes a combat thing where you're shooting at guys and there's no real cover system, but you've got to use cover, so you're just crouching up and down behind walls. Here I am slowing down time to sneak up behind this guy to just do a very simple stealth kill, and that's most of the game, is that, what I just did, is slowing down time a little bit, astrally projecting to, get a look at people or turn off security cameras, and that's really it. And I mentioned before about the stunning lack of atmosphere. It's not just that dreary, droning, monotone voice acting that comes from pretty much anyone with a vocal part in the game. It's not just the graphics even though it's sort of featureless and bland and basic. Nothing about this is engaging. It's just so dull and one-dimensional. And there's no real sound design to draw you in. The visuals certainly don't help, as I don't know why I thought I could break that. It's rote, it's formulaic, it's just corridors and one dreary path forward that has nothing to surprise the player. And for something that is selling itself as a psychological thriller, there's nothing thrilling about it. And the only psychology is you wondering how the team who made this thought they could get away with charging $30 for it. That's the only psychologically thrilling thing, is trying to get inside the heads of people who thought any of this was fine. But, as I say, this is mostly it. Just wandering behind people, pressing a button to kill them. We will show you some gunplay as well, but stealth is preferable. Stealth might be boring, but at least it's not a fucking mess like trying to shoot these arseholes. The slowing down of time is somewhat necessary to shoot the enemies, just because, you know, they don't care about being shot, and they will just stand there and gun you with assault rifles if you try and fight them normally. But that's about the only thing that differentiates this from a total bargain basement stealth action game. Outside of the two psychic powers, it really is just a derivative mess that so desperately wants to be other games and is all the worse for trying to be those games. Also, it takes 2 headshots to kill people, and sometimes the big splash effect of blood that denotes someone dying will trigger, even if the person isn't dead, so you might think someone's dead when they're not. Also, sometimes the enemies will see you if you're behind them or you're hiding behind something, and they'll just arbitrarily spot you anyway. Also, sometimes you have to crouch and sneak up behind them, or they'll hear you. Sometimes you can just walk behind them and they won't hear you. Sometimes the enemy AI moves out of sync with the movement patterns they're supposed to have. There was one point where I was quite literally stuck because the corridor I was supposed to go down was patrolled by 2 guys who were just bumping into each other. They were supposed to be on some sort of pattern, some sort of pathway, but I couldn't discern it because they just kept bumping into each other in the middle of the corridor I had to walk down. And this was at that point where it was like, you couldn't do this, you couldn't just kill them. If you're seen even a little bit, it's game over. And the checkpointing, well, take a wild guess how good the checkpointing is. It's shit. It will throw you back to, you know, doing the same repetitive stealth sequences over and over to the point where you're just so effing fucking sick of it. And I realise I said effing fucking, but that's what this game is. It's fucking effing bad. Here we are. This is the point where you can't even pull out your gun anymore because the stealth was so exciting with the option to shoot stuff. Let's take that option away and turn it into pure stealth, because people love that. They love a psychological thriller with combat where if you're seen once, you're dead, and that's it. Goodbye game. And if you are seen, no matter how far in the room you've gotten, you'll be tossed right back to the beginning and have to do this dreary shite over and over again. The same repetitive, recycled crap. It's one of those games where if you've done it once, you've done it 1,000 times. And this game not only does it once, but it does do it 1,000 times, and it never gets more fun, it never gets more interesting. The only interest is seeing just how much worse the acting can get, just what kind of glitches you'll bump into next. You know, how will the AI fuck up this time? How will a cutscene make you unintentionally laugh this time? That's the only real joy out of this game, is some of the dreadful animations in cutscenes. They can be a bit funny. But outside of that, Past Cure is, certainly for its price point, one of the worst games I've played this year. And this comes hot off the heels of me doing a Jimpressions on that Hunt Down the Freeman, which it was one of the worst games released this year, and Dynasty Warriors 9, which I consider one of the worst games this year. So far, I haven't got a nominee for any of the best games this year, but we've got 3 already, and it's only just turned March, so that's fun. But Past Cure, I absolutely cannot recommend it. It will try and make you think it's similar to Silent Hill. It'll try and make you think it's similar to Metal Gear Solid, to Uncharted. The melee combat system is ripped from Uncharted. But for all these games it copies, all these games it rips off, it cannot even be an adequate forgery of any single one of them. It is so under par so utterly inadequate that it's downright insulting that it would charge even $10, let alone 3 times that much. The majority of this game experience is a forced stealth section in an otherwise good game that drags the experience down, except the good game part is gone, and it's just the shitty stealth section, interspersed with some downright pathetic attempts to be a horror game, with incredibly weak tricks to try and make you think you're playing a cinematic experience, with things like letterboxing, which that fell out of fashion a good few years ago, mates. I think they're only doing it because they saw the Evil Within do it and they want to look a bit like the Evil Within as well. The game industry is pretty forgiving in that if you copy something, it doesn't matter so long as you copied it well, and this game tries to copy so much and does none of it even acceptably. I would struggle to recommend this game as a morbid curiosity, let alone a fun time. It looks like the sort of game that could have some B-movie potential, you know, some cheesy fun to it, but it doesn't even have that because it's so lacking in terms of atmosphere, like I've mentioned. The voice acting can't even emote. The visual and sound design is so bargain basement that there's nothing to latch onto. There's nothing to hook the player in. There's simply a complete lack of artistry to this game, where it could have at least gotten by on some sort of camp stupidity like a Deadly Premonition, but it doesn't even have that going for it. Like, the game is functional enough that it could have gotten away with that if it just had a little more oomph to it, a little something, anything. But at its very best, this is the video game equivalent of a dry bit of bread with some mould on the underside. Dry, stale, unappetizing. And yes, it's very cliched to make food metaphors when you're reviewing video games or any entertainment really, but that's what this game deserves. And we'll leave it at that. I am planning to do some Jimpressions on more promising new games coming out. I've got my eye on a couple of PC indie games that I'm going to be giving a go, but I was very curious about this one and I had to satiate that curiosity, and hopefully anyone else who's curious about it can take a look at the video footage and realise that it's just not bloody worth it. This game is not worth it. And that's that. Past cure. Past its sell-by date.